views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. Now, here are your co-hosts, Marv R., Bruce H., and the Monty Man.
Welcome aboard to the Good Ship Recovery and the great reality for this week here at Take 12 Radio.com. You feel at home, Marv?
I think that music was to welcome Marv. pretty good stuff.
Well, welcome to the great reality. Marv R is here, Bruce H is here, and I, of course, am the Monty Man. And last week, we said at least our in-studio goodbyes to Melissa T. And when she gets settled in her new location, she'll be joining us on the phone on occasion with the rest of us. And we don't know how long Marv's going to be here. He's got his property up for sale and maybe moving, and we just can't keep him around, can we, Bruce?
No. They come here and they get run off.
I know. Well, today we're going to be talking about the evolution of Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step fellowships, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. Yeah, is it good, bad, indifferent? We're gonna be talking about that, and but before we do that, I want to let you know that moi is going to be up in where am I going to be? I'm going to be in with Lifeline Connections up in Vancouver this Friday for the alumni Giving It Back reception. It is the alumni for Lifeline Connections at Clark College Kaiser Hall Student Center, and it's from 6 to 9 p.m. It is open to the public. This is sober living, really done right, and these are alumni from the Lifeline Connections sober living folks and treatment folks up there in Vancouver. Vancouver has an amazing recovery community. I am telling you, it's like crossing over into another world. You cross over the bridge, you go to Vancouver, and the meetings up there, and from Celebrate Recovery to Alcoholics Anonymous, everybody's on the same page. There's no right fighters. It's pretty amazing, and they just come out of the woodwork. So we're going to be up there. There's going to be pizza and people and purpose. That's 3 P's: pizza, people, and purpose. So Clark College Kaiser Hall Student Center this Friday, from 6 to 9. And we're going to be doing some recording up there too. So in a couple of weeks we'll have some what I call Take 12 Radio shorts for you to listen to from some people up there, from some dynamic speakers. And there's going to be vendor booths and a whole bunch of goodies. So there you go there. That's done. Let's see. Page 2. Okay. So let's listen to from one of our sponsors. And we'll come back with recovery news and focus and trivia, which everybody just loves. Right, Bruce?
Right.
Here's the dinner bell. Okay, we'll be right back. Foundations Recovery Network invites you to attend Innovations in Recovery, March 30th through April 2nd, 2015, at the prestigious Hotel Del Coronado in San Diego, California. Innovations in Recovery is about the discovery and discussion of effective solutions for professionals and their patients. As the landscape of behavioral health continues to change, shaped by scientific advances and the challenges of our modern world, staying up to date in the treatment field has never been more important. Professionals will learn best practices for treating co-occurring addiction and mental health disorders, process addictions, unconventional and unwilling populations, and how to facilitate a framework for the long-term recovery well-being of their patients. Psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, clinicians, therapists, social workers, intervention, treatment providers, medical staff, treatment professionals of all kinds can benefit from the dynamic workshops, keynotes, and networking opportunities at the Innovations in Recovery Conference, March 30th through April 2nd. To register for this conference, visit foundationsevents.com. All right, and by the way, if you like golfing, you guys like to golf? You ever golfed?
No. Technology.
Technology is Bruce's word for the day. Well, the foundation's conference that's coming up. There is a golf tournament. It begins at 8:00 on Sunday, March 29th. The tournament is limited to 48 golfers and will be held at Riverwalk Golf Course on Fashion Valley Road in San Diego. The tournament is restricted to conference attendees only. You will register through your conference registration, available at foundationsevents.com.
Whether it's good, whether it's bad, even if it's ugly, it's time for the Monty Man's Recovery News in Focus.
That's right. Recovery News. Oh, Lord. Is sponsored this week by Serenity Springs Recovery Center, a fully licensed all-male residential treatment facility located on beautiful Edgewater, Florida. They offer 45, 60, and 90-day individualized treatment programs and honor most insurance providers. Please contact their 24-hour admissions department at 844-377-7464. All right. Are you ready for story number one? Here we go. Well, the Obama administration, just saying that gives me hives, announced a startling change in federal drug court policy early this month. We know somebody that's very involved in drug court, and I, for one, am very pro-drug court. I've seen some wonderful things come out of drug court. But let's read further. The federal government is cracking down on drug courts that block opiate addicts from receiving medication-assisted treatments. Michael Bozzini, the director of the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, announced the shift earlier this month. Drug court programs which provide non-violent offenders with substance abuse treatment in place of jail time will no longer be allowed to ban these treatments if they receive federal funding. Of course, if you are getting federal dollars, that you need to make sure that people, one, have access to these medications, and two, that we're not basically making people go off these medications, particularly as a participant of drug court, said Botticelli. I think that's how you pronounce it. Semi-synthetic opiate replacements like Suboxone are widely endorsed by doctors. Well, so what? Just because they're widely endorsed by doctors doesn't impress me at all, by the way, as the most effective way to help addicts wean off harder drugs and have been proven to reduce overdoses and boost recovery rates. But many courts are uncomfortable allowing the use of these treatments. The Huffington Post reported that drug courts in Kentucky had enforced an abstinence-only policy for defendants, forcing addicts to go off medications like Suboxone. We've made that clear. If they want our federal dollars, they cannot do that. So there you go. So if you're abstinence-based in your drug court, if you want federal funding, forget it. Ain't going to happen. Okay, story number two. Bruce just made a big sigh. I know. Well, Apple's App Store, we talked about technology off the air a minute ago. Apple's App Store had a change of heart after receiving thousands of emails from pot advocates. No surprise. Just 3 weeks after Apple formally removed cannabis social networking app, Massroots, from the App Store, the company had a change of heart and will once again allow the app to be downloaded. Massroots announced in a blog post last Friday that Apple has blended their formerly rigid policy on marijuana apps after pot advocates sent 10,000 emails asking the company to reconsider, allowing users to download it if they live in one of the 23 states where either recreational or medical marijuana is legal. Any user will need to be identified by the geological check that they live in one of these states. We'd like to thank the App Store for embracing the cannabis community and continuing to set an example as a socially progressive institution. We are excited to begin a new chapter with Apple in which we can work together to effect meaningful societal change. I just, I'm getting a migraine. We have a duty. They go on to say, we have a duty to show the world that cannabis consumption can be done in a safe and responsible manner in compliance with state laws and federal enforcement guidelines. We do not take this task lightly. Marijuana app developers were growing frustrated with Apple since the application process was significantly slower than that of Android and Google. Zach Marburger, CEO of the development firm CannaBuild, said the company's marijuana cooking calculator was approved by Android in 5 minutes and was rejected by Apple in 10 days. What? Yeah, you got a cannabis production app you can put on your phone, and it only took 10,000 signatures to get the number one technology computer people in the world to change their mind? You can get 500 billion signatures to stop killing unborn children, and nobody's changing their mind. Ah. Ah. Oh, Lord. God, I could go on and on.
Technology.
Technology. All right. Let's see. What's this one? Story number 3 is... Well, okay. Despite a windfall in tax revenues, marijuana retailers still struggle with federal laws. This is Colorado, the leader in the legalized my right to get stoned laws. Legalizing marijuana have proven to be a windfall for Colorado's tax coffers, with revenues from both legal and recreational pot generating more than $60 million for the state. But retailers themselves are reporting a less rosy picture, with resistance from the banking industry and the Internal Revenue Service, making significant reductions to their take of the vast profits. Colorado reported sales of $386 million in medical marijuana and $313 million of recreational marijuana. Not a big difference. That figure does not include profits from the sale of related products like smoking paraphernalia or from the tourist industry, which saw increased income. Yeah, I bet it did. A lot more people coming to Colorado. Saw increased income to hotels and restaurants from in-state and out-of-state travelers. Such figures have led economists to predict that by 2016, Colorado can expect $94 million in marijuana tax revenue on an annual basis, which will mint pot as a $1 billion retail market. Unfortunately, retailers will see only a portion of those profits. Section 280E, which was enacted by the IRS in 1982, prevents businesses that traffic in Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 controlled substances from deducting any amount of their expenses. Banks are also unwilling to take pot retailers as clients, citing the possibility of federal intervention. But hope appears to be on the horizon for retail outlets. The IRS issued a memorandum on accountants in late 2014 that stated that those who file taxes for marijuana companies will not be subject to increased risk of audit or penalties. The Drug Enforcement Agency, too, has sworn off raiding medical marijuana outlets that are in compliance with state law. The question now remains as to how much of the pot pie will be divided between state agencies and the individuals and companies that sell it within the limits of the law. What's going on? Don't you just kind of just go, what's going on? What's going on, you guys? What do you
Technology. I think it's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I'm telling you.
Just telling you, man.
Yeah. If there was somebody that had any kind of experience with that sort of stuff, is involved with it and trying to get it to going, then it's because they're smoking it.
Pretty much. I think you're right.
It's crazy.
Oh,
it's
Marv.
just insane.
Marv.
We have enough problems with alcohol out there when we sell it legal.
And we have not learned anything, have we?
No, not a thing.
Not a darn thing. Oh, Lord have mercy. Well, that wraps it up for Recovery News in Focus. Pot News in Focus. That's just a classic song, man.
Well, you're not going to get away from us that quick, Monty Man, because it's time for some cowboy trivia.
Yes, indeedy. Cowboy Trivia with Marv and Bruce H. All right, trivia question number one. Believe me, listeners. Listen, I got an email the other day. They said, you guys have too much fun on the show. You know, you spend half the show doing all these circus acts, and the other half you talk about recovery. Well, let me tell you something. I have listened to the other recovery radio stations out there, and they spend about 5 minutes on recovery issues, for the most part. There's some that don't. But they're talking about plumbing and their golf game and the sky and, you know, what fence they built in the neighbor's yard and blah, 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 blah. And they're talking about the Kardashians. And then the last 5 minutes of the show, they're talking about the topic. So quit your whining. Okay. We've been having fun in recovery. Okay, so cowboy trivia question number one. Who is the oldest cowboy hat manufacturer in the U.S.?
Oh, my God.
Stetson.
Okay, here are your choices. Beaver brand, Stetson, or Ubiquitous? Ubiquitous.
Only reason I'm going to go along with Marv on this is because that's all what I know.
You say Stetson, Marv says Stetson?
Yes.
Well, let's see here.
Ubiquitous.
You guys, the cows, would say that both of you are wrong. It's Beaver brand.
Really?
Beaver brand is the
There you
oldest
go.
manufacturer.
That kind of makes sense.
Does it? Mm-hmm. I've never even heard of Beaver brand. Have you, Marv?
I've never heard of them.
Yeah.
That's how old they are. Okay, trivia question number two. A cowboy's hat its purpose was to what? Here are your choices. Keep out the elements, attract the ladies, or cover a receding hairline.
Keep out the elements.
Marv?
Yeah, what Bruce said.
Keep out the elements? Well, the Ducks would say you're both correct. It was keep out the elements. Okay, number three. What are not chaps? Chaps. I'm going to give you some choices.
What are not chaps?
What are not chaps? You ready? Here we go. Shotguns, bat wings, chinks, or rifles?
Rifles.
Yeah, rifles.
So shotguns, bat wings, and chinks are chaps?
Yes.
Okay, you guys would be correct. That is true. Bruce is proud of himself, but he doesn't really know. Okay, Levi's originated in 1860s. They were originally made out of what fabric? Levi's. Canvas, polyester, wool, or denim? Levi's was made out of canvas, polyester, wool, or denim?
Canvas.
Yeah, I would think it would be canvas.
Canvas is correct. Canvas is correct. Get a bell. Okay. Wrangler jeans debuted.
Oh, come on now. You're going to make me lose. Where is Cecil, by the way?
Cecil is out cleaning out cow pies. Wrangler jeans debuted to the public in what year?
What?
Wrangler jeans debuted to the public in what year?
That's what I got on right now.
1947 by Rodeo Ben or 1934 by Carl Baum?
I'm going to say 1947 because that's the year I was born.
Ooh. Well, now we don't have to ask Marv how old he is.
That sounded like a terrific answer.
Well,
and I have to go with it.
That is correct. That is correct. It's 1947 Rodeo Ben. Okay, most widely sold cowboy boot, popular to both men and women, are Roper, Baker, Candlestick Maker, or Square Toe?
I do not know. I've had one pair of boots in my whole life.
Most widely cowboy boot, popular to both men and women, Roper, Baker, Candlestick Maker, or Square Toe? do you think, Marv?
I just don't know. I'll admit to that.
Okay.
Roper.
Roper is correct. Bing, ding a bell. All right, a stampede string.
I was going to follow Marv.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you liar.
I'm through with trivia.
Yeah, you're through. And by the way, can I tell you that I got the majority of these? I'm not going to tell you whether I got them right or wrong. I will when we're done. Okay, stampede string is...
A what?
Stampede string.
A stampede string.
Everybody knows what a stampede string is.
Okay, you ready? Here are your choices. It's an item used to keep your hat on, it's a herd of rampaging horses, or it's used to stop a stampede of animals. I think Marv knows this.
I have no clue. That's just to stop.
What is it, Marv?
Keep your hat on.
It's to keep your hat on.
Is that right?
Yeah, during the stampede.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Damn stampede.
And it's actually, isn't it actually...
Well, they said it was a string. Hey, put a string out there.
We're not stringing you along, Bruce.
Is it actually worn in the back of the head, and not necessarily
just for show?
Just for show.
It goes in under your chin.
Under your chin to keep the hat on, but for show, it's worn in the back. Who was most responsible for popularizing the cowboy's buckle? Was it Hollywood, rodeos, or Theodore Roosevelt?
Now, who would know that?
Marv.
Rodeos.
That's what I'd go with, too.
Well, you're wrong. It was Hollywood.
Is
Really?
It was Hollywood, yes.
Oh.
Okay, we got, okay. In 1980, a cowboy used what to hold up his pants?
19 what?
80. Or 1880. What did he use to hold up his pants, Bruce?
A rope.
Well, that's one of your choices. A belt, a rope, or suspenders.
Oh, wow. They had suspenders, too, I think.
All of the above.
Well, it was actually suspenders, according to...
Yeah, I was thinking hard on that when I changed it.
according to... by the way, who is this according to? Top50ranches.com. Okay, and here's your last one. Who is responsible for being a national leader in Western fashion? Was it rodeo cowboys, authentic cowboys, or Langston's Western wear? Responsible for national leader in Western fashion.
Well, I guess it would be the latter.
Langston's Western wear?
Yeah.
What do you think, Marv?
I can't know.
He can't know. Well, it was Langston's Western wear. That's right. Boom.
Well, do you think I got more than I filled in?
I think you did. All right, listen to this, and we'll be right back.
There are a ton of social networking websites, but one stands apart for a very special reason. This one saves lives. It's MatchingDonors.com. MatchingDonors.com links organ donors with people in need of kidney and other transplants. In the U.S., 19 people die each day waiting for an organ transplant, most of them for kidneys. If you've ever considered becoming a living organ donor, or if you have someone in need of an organ transplant, visit MatchingDonors.com. Home of the greatest gift of all, the gift of life. MatchingDonors.com.
What makes the difference in recovery? How can one help a struggling person find his or her way to healing? Substance use and co-occurring mental health conditions provide a number of formidable obstacles that can keep individuals from living the healthy, happy lives that they deserve. What does it take to usher a person from a disease of addiction into long-term recovery? This is the Monty Man from Take 12 Recovery Radio. And at Foundations Recovery Network, they believe in providing evidence-based, integrated treatment and patient-centered care. They treat the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. Because they treat both substance use and underlying mental health conditions, they are able to address the root causes of addiction and prepare individuals for a sustainable life in recovery. If you have questions about whether you or a loved one may need help, please call this number today, 877-714-1318. That's 877-714-1318. This may be the most important call you ever make.
Yippee-yi-yay, cow patty. Rode into town to find the man that killed her daddy. Ah! Yippee-yi-yay, cow patty.
Yes, Jim Stafford with his song Cow Patty about the girl named Patty who was a cowgirl who looked for the guy who shot her daddy. And she said, you know, you better look down. Look where you're going when the chips are down. You might step in something. All right. We're going to have fun with Marv, aren't we? Yeah. Oh. Just wait for the weeks to come. Oh, Lord. You know what we ought to do? We ought to bring some dirt in here and throw some peanuts on the floor. What do you think, Marv?
You caught me off guard on that one.
We can sit on bay hails.
Belly up to the bar, huh?
Bay hails.
Hails of bay? Hails.
Bales.
Hay bales. Hey, did I say bay hails? Well, listeners, if you've never joined us with Marv on the show, the reason that we're poking fun at the whole cowboy thing is Marv is an actual authentic rootin' tootin' cowboy. He really is. And what's that? Oh, don't want to do that. He trains horses. He just does a lot of stuff. And so we're just glad that you're joining us. We don't know how long you're going to be with us, but we're going to keep you around as long as we can.
Thanks, Marty. Good to be here.
You betcha. Well, the evolution of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm using that word because it's still kind of wearing on me. Or still kind of stuck to me from the Evolution of Addiction Treatment Conference that we attend every other year down in L.A. But I want to talk about the evolution of Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step fellowships that are likened unto that. Where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. Let's talk about some of the things that people in the fellowship have done right. What are some of those things? Who wants to start us out?
Some of the things they've done right?
Yeah. What have we gotten right within these 12-step rooms in literature?
Well, I think there are people in 12-step programs that are listening to people that come in and making an approach to them and telling them that they have a solution to their problem if they care to listen and do these 12 steps. 99.9, I guess you'd say, % of the people the programs that have borrowed from Alcoholics Anonymous, they borrow the 12 steps.
Sure.
Yet people are being dependent upon the meetings instead of that.
So so one of the things they're doing wrong is they're not really paying attention to what the steps are trying to show them.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's something else that has been done right, Marv, within the 12-step community?
Well, I'm sitting here thinking about it, and probably most importantly in my mind is the idea that you said evolution, but I would go along with divinely inspired. And part of the reason I'm saying that is because so many people that come in cannot absorb. Maybe for some of them 6 to 8 months down the road, but when they originally come in, they can't absorb what's going on in its fullness. I think what I appreciate and what is a good thing in my mind is the fact that this thing is, I'm not going to say complicated, but because, the second tradition says that, and this is a paraphrase, that right. God is in the rooms. And what I'm trying to get at is every individual that speaks based on their experience, strength, and hope is there is something in what they say that is going to touch those who cannot comprehend in a way that the rest of us, it would seem trivial or normal, or but one little sentence can inspire a man or a woman who is having a really hard time getting what's going on. That's a good thing. And I think it's far beyond what we would see or perceive when it's happening. And they come back. And then am I making any sense at all?
Sure. Sure.
So that's at least part of the answer. That
let me share with you guys what happened to me, my very first experience with coming into a 12-step support meeting. And people who have been listening to this show long enough know that I make it definitely, very clear that there's a difference between the 12-step support meetings and the 12-step program. Sometimes they hit it out of the ballpark and they match up beautifully. More times than not, they don't. And we'll talk about that too. But let me share with you something that happened to me. I walked into my first 12-step meeting in Stockton, California. It was absolutely disgustingly smoke-filled. I mean, it was, and I smoked. The room was long and narrow, barely could fit the width of a 6-foot, 8-foot table end to end, and it was very long. And at the very end of it was a broken window with a fan in it with sticker bushes growing from the outside in through the fan. You get the picture. Right. It was hot. It was miserable. It was smoky. It was really not a place I would have woken up that day and said, I think I'm going to go hang out there. But something drew me to it. And I went, and this guy that must have been 100 years old, I sat close to the door, not because I was afraid to mingle, but because I wanted some air, and the door was opening and closing a lot, and people coming and going. And this older gentleman very gently put his hand on my hand and said, "Are you a drug addict?" And of course, now remember, I had never heard any like anti-narcotics versus pro-alcohol, or I had never heard any, I hadn't experienced any of these things. So I didn't know. I said, I don't know what I am, but I'm here. And he says, "It doesn't matter. You're in the right place." And all of a sudden, the smoke wasn't as smoky. The heat wasn't as hot. I kind of relaxed. It was a statement. It was a welcoming statement. He got this huge grin on his face. I will never forget that. Now, the very next day, because that meeting wasn't meeting the next day, I went across town over to around El Dorado Boulevard, if anybody knows where that is. I don't even know if the meeting's still there. And I had the same shirt on that I had in the first meeting, which had an ichthus. It was a Christian fish. It's a fish that said IXOYE in the middle of it. I had it on from the night before, from the meeting, and I wore the same shirt. And I walked into the meeting, and almost immediately I was approached, and I was asked to leave. And their statement was, "Turn around, please leave. We don't want any Jesus freaks in here." I hadn't even opened my mouth. They just saw my t-shirt. It's just a shirt. You know what I'm saying? And so I walked away from it, and I was really confused. Because I looked down on my little they had these cards. They weren't like pamphlets. These cards with the meeting schedules on them, and it said what the name of the meeting was and or the organization, and I was confused. And I went home, and what was comforting, I felt like God was saying, okay, you just got to experience both sides of this thing. Don't let that ruin the experience you had yesterday. But you're going to run into this. Now, I learned that right away. And that sentiment, I've experienced both for years. Over 28 years of this thing. I've experienced both of it. And I'll never forget it. So I saw something that was done really right, and I saw something that was done really wrong. That was my first experience. Needless to say, I went back to the other one, and stayed there for a while, and I've been involved in that particular 12-step fellowship for a long time. Not that particular meeting, because we live in Oregon now. So that was kind of my experience there. So I think that the founders of this thing, I think we were more on track back then than we are today. I guess a real popular way to voice what I just said is to say I believe it's watered down. And man, I'll tell you what, I get email, I get Facebook posts. How dare you criticize our 12-step programs? Everybody's always trying to point out what's wrong. What about what's right? That's why I wanted to open the show with what's right. Because there's a lot that's right. But I think there's a lot that's polluted. And I'm concerned. And I'll tell you why I am a little miffed about some of the things that go on today is because this is my fellowship. You know what I mean? I take some ownership in this thing. This is my family. Well, I'm scared to death.
I think that when I look at the 12-step programs, it goes along with what Marv was just talking about. People will say something. But I think the problem is that we're not listening enough to people and making the approach and giving them the common solution that we have, the common solution, these 12 steps, okay? And the program and what we say has become more important than that. Do you understand what I'm...
You mean the fellowship and what we say in the meetings have become more important than what the program is outlined in the book?
Yeah, like I do it myself. I go in there and I think I have something to say, and I say it. I talk a lot, and I think it's the frame of mind I have that it's going to help somebody or it's going to mean something. When that's not what the 12-step program is about. It's about doing 12 steps. And I think that it's right to do what Marv is talking about, to share. But at what point do we approach those people and say, hey, I heard you. I'm just like that too. And tell them that you have a solution to that.
Now, we're assuming that you're talking about those of us who have a solution to that.
We're talking about
right.
12-step programs and trying to help other people. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think what Marv says, it holds water. It's true. But I'm wondering myself if that very thing that he's talking about hasn't become more important to us than the 12 steps, the path to a power that can do for us what we can't do for ourselves.
And I think some that would be listening now would say, I'm going to play devil's advocate, would say, well, we save that for the big book studies and the 12 and 12 meetings.
What do you mean?
Well,
that's
you're talking about an emphasis on the steps.
Yeah.
And I think some people, I don't necessarily, I don't agree with this statement, but I think some people are saying we save that for the step meetings.
Listen to what I'm saying. I don't care if it's a book study or a 12-step meeting or a meeting, with just general topics. What I believe, and this is where I think the thing starts, is that I have to have a solution. So I go to these people and I talk to them, and then it's on a one-on-one basis. For crying out loud, one of the best times that I ever spent with an alcoholic in my life, other than when I finally learned this thing, was going out to Marv's and sitting in his tack room. Mm-hmm. And it was different than being in a meeting. It was a one-on-one basis, and Marv was listening to me, and he made some really powerful points. We didn't do the steps, but, I mean, we connected. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I don't know that happens in the rooms when they become more important in a gathering and a counseling session instead of. I think it developed into something where we're relying upon that instead of what the program is. That's all.
Marv, your thoughts?
Well, what I was thinking about is not everybody's ready. You know, when you're in a meeting, even a big book or a step study meeting,
right?
Not everybody's ready to hear the solution. It's a progression. It's not boom. You know, I'm going to hit you with this, and because, like I said before, you know, not everybody when they come in there is even capable of comprehending. I'm going to say 85% of what's going on. So I agree with Bruce. There is a common solution, but at the same time, a lot of people just cannot hear it. They're not ready to hear it. They have to progress and heal and get to a point where, boom, the light comes on.
Okay, I agree with you. Now here's where I think the difference is to it. That doesn't have anything to do with us making the approach to somebody and talking to them and trying to win that confidence. You see what I mean? And then we can discern whether we can go farther or they want to go farther.
Right.
But if we don't do that, and that's what I think that we haven't done, that why people become dependent upon these things, other than the 12 steps. My dependence is upon God. You know, I have to say that right at the top. But see, I think we're talking about the same thing. We're wondering what happened to it.
What happened to making the approach?
What happened to 12-step programs? Why has the recovery rate dropped so drastically?
I didn't know it had, but
yes,
it's now below 2%. Oh. It was in the days of Bill and Bob, it was 98%, sometimes higher than that. And then for years it was about 70 some odd, and then it dropped considerably. And a lot of people want to blame treatment for that. I don't blame treatment. I take full responsibility myself. I think two things has happened. Why the recovery rate has dropped. I think we've turned God into a generic term. I think once that started to happen, that was the beginning of the decline. Whenever you try, you can try to kick God out of something. God's God. He's not intimidated by you trying to kick him out. So people that are freaking out because there's no prayer in schools, let me tell you something. God is very present, and he's going to have his way. And you can try to kick God out of something that if he's, what the word God says, what God is joined together, let no man, separate. If God's in it, God's in it. And if he wants to walk away from it, sometimes he does. But I'm not going to be kicking him out. That's just my take on it. But I think we turned God into a generic term, and so people aren't able to absorb what they need to as far as a relationship with a power greater than themselves like they could be. The other thing, I think what we've done is we've stopped qualifying people. We've stopped making the approach. We've stopped we've stopped applying and implementing or teaching people how to do that in the 12-step process to the degree that we used to. I mean, they would sit down with me. They'd bring people in. They'd meet you at the door. They'd bring you in. If you were new, they took you into another room. They sat down and they determined right here and now, are you a heavy drinker or are you an alcoholic? And because it depended on how they were going to work with you. And if you were an alcoholic of the hopeless variety, you had the obsession of the mind and the allergy of the body, then they got right to work on these steps. And they did 1, 2, and 3. Boom, boom, boom. And, within a matter of weeks, you were done with your first formal working of the 12 steps. You knew how to apply and implement those principles in your daily life. And you had a spiritual awakening as a result of doing that, and your relationship with God began to grow. And people recovered. They weren't in recovery. They stopped referring to themselves as alcoholics. They said, I am a recovered alcoholic, or they would, more people than not would say, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous in that program. In fact, our literature says that's how we are to introduce ourselves. And so what happened was we lost what the big book and some of these other groups' literature instructions are. They're still there. But I think Bruce is right. I think we spend so much time talking about our day and turning the meetings into a therapy session that we've lost it. But on the other hand,
he gets really enthusiastic.
I do. On the other hand, what Mark said is true, and I think I was thinking, Bruce, when Mark was talking about some people aren't ready to take the whole ball of wax right away. I was thinking about when I was a little kid in the summertime, we'd put the sprinkler on out in the lawn. Right? And your first experience of that, you play with it, You don't really jump right into the middle of the sprinkler, especially if Dad's got it turned up all the way. You kind of play around the outside of it a little bit, and then you get kind of used to the cold. And then after a while, you're sitting on this stupid sprinkler head going, look at this, whoa, and your trunks are blowing up. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't mean that Dad turned the water off. He left it on full bore constantly.
Are you likening that to the?
Yes, I think we need to have the water turned on all the time in those rooms, and people will warm up to it. They're not always ready yet, and they'll kind of do that. But if we shut the water down, then when they're ready, what do we have for them? We just have a drip.
Well,
does that make sense? It's so deep.
Well, I think you're really enthusiastic about this.
I am.
Yeah. This was one of the few times that I couldn't step in. We had to listen. I would like to go all the way back to this God thing. And that's really been an issue in a lot of places, you know what I mean? And it's been hard for me to taper my message because I want to talk about that a lot. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's such a profound thing in my life.
Well, it's the whole purpose of the book.
Yeah, for my life today. Yeah, but here's one of the things that I don't understand, and maybe with Marv and you we take a look at this. People say all the time, they talk about if you do that, you run people off or you shut them off.
If you talk about God.
Yeah. And I had a real contempt for God when I come in. But what I seen in Alcoholics Anonymous is more of us weathered that than ran out the doors.
I agree.
You see what I mean? So I'm not sure that having that said in the rooms is going to be that big a turnoff. It might turn people off, but eventually, if they do this thing or if they listen to it, there won't be so much antipathy, inside of them. Because you're like, one of the things that Bill said when they mentioned it personal to me, it even got worse. Oh, shit, So I just don't go along with it. I think more people weather that. Now, there are people that will go out the door, and it's a horrible thing to see somebody, especially if they go out and they don't get back or they, something happens,
Right.
And I understand that. But I'm wondering, which way is it? What do we do? You know, how do we? Like Marv says, some people just aren't ready. They can't comprehend. You know.
Well,
So
I think we need to. Okay, let me put it this way. I think I need to put myself in proper perspective along with all this stuff. I don't disagree with what anybody said, by the way. But
It's okay if you do. by the way.
everybody in those rooms are people. And I think, that tradition, too, part of, I can't recite it word for word, but it says group conscience. And what that means to me is to be aware that we're all different. That be careful with my ego when I go to talking. Try to put what I think might be the solution in a manner, put it to them in a manner that would be understood by them, not by me.
now I think you're absolutely right, and I
And,
think that's. Go ahead.
I guess that was about all I was going to say. We just, if God is God, and then people are going to be receptive to, He's going to open the doors, not me.
Right.
All I can do is share my experience.
Yeah.
That tradition, by the way, states for our group purpose. For our group purpose.
Okay.
So I'm talking about the individuals. We're talking about the group
not,
here.
Not conscience.
Right. Well, it does say there
Well,
is
that's
but
good.
there is but one ultimate authority. Now, this is talking about service. This is talking about the business side of
I know,
Alcoholics
but
Anonymous.
I take it into the meetings.
Yeah.
I mean, I take it as part of.
So it says, for our
Me
group
too.
purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, capital G, as he, capital H, not they, not her, not it, he, may express himself in our group conscience.
That's assuming that there's some people in recovery.
Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. In other words, they're not in charge. God's in charge.
Right.
And it's how he expresses himself in our group conscience. So it says how he expresses himself, not as how we express him, how he does through the group conscience.
But I think there's a lot of room for caution
Yeah.
in what we're doing in those meetings.
There, Barb
And
said. Go ahead.
I don't mean part of. Part of what I think's wrong
Right?
is all this touchy-feely stuff that's going on. The old timers, they pretty much said it the way it was. But at the same time, when I think about the Apostle Paul and when he went into these different areas in his missionary trips and stuff,
Yeah.
he didn't back off of the gospel, but at the same time, what I think I'm able to gather out of it is he was very conscious of what was going on around him and what the situation was and who the people were and all that stuff.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if you look at all of his letters, even if he's getting ready to really kind of rip them a new you-know-what, because they've been out of line, he always starts out complimenting them. He always starts out and says, I'm grateful for you, blessed are you, you've been supportive, I can't thank God enough for you. Then he goes on to tackle the topic of the day, whatever that may be, and he corrects them, and but he encourages them, but he didn't mess around. He wasn't touchy-feely. In fact, some people would say he was a little harsh. But I think that's one reason why he checked himself, and he always prefaced whatever he said with some kind words. And I think you're right. I saw Bruce cracking up when you said the touchy-feely thing. I think we seem to, the pendulum swings, doesn't it? we get this attitude of, looking at a newcomer and saying, shut up and sit down, take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. You have nothing to say. Well, that's not the right approach. I mean, because when I came in, you could have crushed me with a word. I would have just said, well, rejected once again, But the other side of the coin is we're like, oh, you relapsed. It's all right. It's not all right. This could be an empty chair today. We could be going to your memorial service, and we're gonna, try to baby you. Oh, we'll love you till you can love yourself.
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about a little bit. But Marv said something about, and I can't remember the exact words now, and I wished I could. But remember, these are people, individuals in the room. And then there's your own self, your ego.
Right.
Okay? And one of the traditions for the 12 steps is that to set ourselves aside. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions. And what we're talking about here is, are you willing to set your stuff aside for the betterment of others, for the group? You see?
Not use your last name.
I think if more of us come in with that sort of attitude, instead of taking people captive or this touchy-feely stuff like you're talking about, and did that on that sort of level, that it would be a whole different thing. I think that you might see a difference in the group. You see? Now, I know you can't control everybody, and you have to give some leeway, but I think it's turned into something that it shouldn't be, I really, really do. And I don't know where the blame lays. We have to be part of it. We have to be part of it.
Right.
So I just don't know, but I see that quite a bit. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? You're talking about treating people, with respect versus disrespect. Isn't it interesting how the two entities that are criticized the most within your 12-step support meetings are the church and the medical profession, or i.e. treatment. And yet, those are our two biggest advocates. They're always promoting us. They're always sending people our way. And we're always going, oh, man, I hate church and I hate synagogue and my rabbi did this and my pastor did that and the treatment centers are sending us these losers and blah, blah. And I'm going, are you kidding me?
Well, see, they want
There's
to talk.
just as many hypocrites in the program as there is in church.
Yeah. But isn't the 12-step program designed for that very thing that you're talking about? Isn't it designed for these people that have those animosities and those contempts to be able to take a look at that, and where that comes from is when they do the 12 steps. See, it's just a sign to me that they haven't done that.
Right. Bill's story is all about that.
Now, that's okay that they haven't done it, and if they've just come in, and I'm willing to put my stuff aside and try to help this person. But for the first time in their life, there's a method by which they can look at those things, and see if they want to live by those principles and that way of life.
So do you guys think, we're almost out of time, do you guys think, and I'll ask Marv this first.
Uh-oh.
Do you think that the evolution, the way this has evolved, has gotten us to a place to where we at one time we knew that we had to work one-on-one, and then we started thinking we needed to do that same stuff that effectively in the meetings, but now we can't do it in the meetings and we need to focus back on one-on-one? I'm not saying get rid of the meetings. I'm just saying, do you think there needs to be more emphasis on the person that's been around a while, that's actually done this thing, making the approach and working one-on-one with people and not depending on the meeting structure to do that? What do you think, Mark?
I'll answer it first.
Oh, Bruce.
Please do.
I think there should be more emphasis back on the one-on-one and stop being, I'm not bashing the meetings here.
Right.
I think they have a huge importance.
But that's
and
not
a
their
place,
job.
And I think the people should be able to come there. But it shouldn't be that. I think there should be more emphasis on the one-on-one.
Okay, Marv, what's your take?
Well, part of the reason I still go to meetings is because I need to. I need the people in there are my teachers a lot of times. And God is in those meetings. There's no doubt in my mind that he is. But I, like Bruce, believe on the one-on-one thing also. But the exception I take to it, it's been my experience for me that God opens those doors for one-on-one. I don't know how many times.
At meeting level?
Huh?
At meeting level? He'll open those doors for one-on-one, but...
No, I mean at home.
At home. Oh, good.
In a restaurant. I don't know how many times people have stopped by and we've sat in that tack room and they open up and I know it's God opening the door.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I'm always that helpful, but I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I start praying. When I see that happening, I said, Lord, okay, what can I do? Well, give me the words, so,
Right.
So I don't know that there's either or. It's a combination of how God's working in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Absolutely.
See, how can you argue with that and with a man that's grounded in God, and he is trying to humble himself to a point where God can work in and through him? You know what I mean? You can't argue with that.
Our own efforts are worthless.
Yeah.
You know it?
Yeah.
Christ said, without me, you can do nothing,
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. I want to wrap this up by mentioning this. One of the things that I've observed over the years, in some circles, not all, and when I'm talking about circles, I'm talking about the support meetings, is sometimes somebody will talk about God, or maybe the topic will be God, or the third step. Very few meetings does God not come up,
right?
Somehow, whether it's a generic term or very specific. And in some gatherings, you'll have somebody that will feel like they've got to defend the traditions and remind everybody, because somebody said Jesus, or somebody said Buddha, or somebody said grandfather, or whatever they said, and they'll have to speak up and say, I just want to let everybody know that the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop whatever it is that organization represents. As if that third tradition was about telling people, hey, if somebody says Jesus, don't sweat it. That's not what that tradition's about at all. But somebody will come along and will say that to try and protect everybody from somebody who shared their faith. Other meetings I've been into, in my particular home group, you never hear that. People are talking about God all the time. And nobody feels like they've got to protect everybody else from the mean God guy or gal. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just the nature of man. Some gatherings are like that. Some aren't. The ones that aren't can end up being like that. I mean, it just depends on how the group evolves and what happens over time. One thing I really like, a guy said the other day, I just loved it. He says, what I love about this fellowship, he's talking about not the program, he's talking about the fellowship. He said, what I do love about it and what they get right is I come in here and I say, I'm so-and-so, and I'm an alcoholic or recovered alcoholic or whatever, and you guys all say, hi, Fred, or whatever his name is. His name's not Fred, but hi, Fred. And you all say it with a very pleasant tone. Then I share. And whether you agreed with me or didn't agree with me or like me or don't like me, you all say, thank you, Fred. He said, where else do I get that? That's amazing. There is, for people that say, hello, Fred, and thank you, Fred, and really mean it, and I think most do, there is a unity there. Even in the diversity, and I think that is something we've gotten right.
I think that there's something that I'd like to have a conversation about when we talk about this thing. When people come in the rooms and they're not capable, or they don't want to, or to comprehend what's going on, they have to get defogged, if you will, for lack of a better term. How do we know that guy has 60 or 90 days to hang around there? How do we know that we're...
He may not have another 24 hours, huh?
Yeah. And to assume that they have to be there, they can't do that without making an approach by not talking to them, like not going to coffee. You see what I mean? Get to know them. I think we do it an injustice to people, You talk about the old-timers, and I think you guys had it right because you had a fellowship outside of that.
So we've lacked a sense of urgency, maybe. We've lost our sense of urgency.
Well, I mean, that might be a way to put it. Yeah. I haven't thought of it on that term, but I think you might be right. We've lost our sense of urgency. Because there's just too many people going in and out, and I think that's why the numbers have dropped. One of the factors of it, anyway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So. Wait, this has been really interesting today. I've enjoyed this. I hope the listeners aren't too mad. Actually, I don't really care.
That's funny.
Oh my goodness! All right, so one of the requests that I've gotten on several occasions, and I think we're going to launch forth into this next week, is Monty Man, will you talk about the promises that are in each step? We've talked about the 9th step promises a lot because they're the ones that everybody seems to read at a lot of the meetings, and nobody knows that they actually are attached to a step. But I thought we would start out with the promises that are in step 1 next week. We've talked about the prayers that are in each step. We've talked about directives that are in each step. But we really haven't touched on the promises of every step. There are promises that come true as a result of each step. And so next week, we're going to be talking about the promises that are in step 1, just to give you guys a heads up. What do you think about that?
Thank you very much.
All right, my friends, our email address is take12radio@comcast.net.
And we're going to put in a hitching post for the horse.
Yeah, that's right. You know what? Don't be surprised if,
Did you see I knew what that was? Hitching post.
That's pretty good, yeah.
My dog knows what that is.
What was the thing I didn't know about the string?
Stampede string.
Yeah. How could you possibly say everybody knows what that is?
I don't know. Oh, I was going to tell you how many I got right. I got 2 right. I was really wrong on most of them. I was worse than you are, Bruce.
What?
All right, my friends. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man with Christy, the studio kitty, over to the left of me here. Marv R. and Bruce H. are wishing God's perfect serenity for you.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Here, little horsey, horsey, horsey.